joined a writing group right away. When I decided that I was going to write a novel, which just sort of came out of, I was not a creative writer ever. Like a lot of the speakers up here were saying they wanted to be a writer all their lives. That was not me. I hated creative writing in high school. I couldn't figure out what the first sentence should be for a composition. And I would get one of my good girlfriends to help me. Then I go off to law school and I get that, analytical writing, it's linear, it makes sense, if there's issues, you deal with issues, you do research, it's nothing creative, it's just arguing. I can do that.
Not a keeping lizard in the place, huh?
I can do that. So, but I read a lot, and I always did read a lot, and I love romances. And I was reading a Danielle Steele book one night, and she was annoying the hell out of me because she said something on one page, and then 3 pages later, she said the same thing. And I'm like, we're not stupid readers. I bet you I could do this. I mean, don't you all say that? I bet you I can do this. So, without taking any courses or anything, I decided to sit down and write a book. So I think I was telling Tina or Terry at lunch, across my desk at work, we have to take continuing legal education credits, and a seminar comes through, how to write your novel in 14 days, a lawyer's guide. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So I sign up for that seminar. It's a morning, it's 3 hours. And that's what got me into my blueprinting craziness. But it really helped me because I didn't even know where to start.
I need that
So
class.
it was perfect. So I write, I do my whole blueprint, I write a whole book, but I don't know any of the rules because I was not a creative writer. So I go to a New Jersey romance writers conference or seminar and I learn about point of view. Something so basic, right? I had like 3 points of view in one paragraph. So talk about a learning curve. When I first started writing, I knew nothing about writing a book. So that's why it took me so long. So anyway, I love going to conferences and seminars and reading books on writing and learning from other people, and it's invaluable.
I could definitely relate to what you're saying as far as like not having an idea where to start or where to go. I went to Mercer County College and I was taking a EG 101 class. Of course I'm there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna learn this, I'm gonna learn that. But it's funny, my professor said to me, out of everybody in the classroom, we had to write a story.
What is in
English?
English.
Oh,
EG 101.
Oh, I never
I'm
heard
talking
about
Mercer
that. I'm
County.
sorry.
Mercer County College, long time ago. So long story short, he said to me, Miss Jasmin, if this was a creative writing class, you would have blown everybody out the water. I looked at him like, what?
Myrtha, could you speak of this a little bit?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. He said, Miss Jasmin, if this was a creative writing class, you would have blown everyone out of the water. I'm like, dude, I just want to pass this class so I can go to the next step. I don't need you to tell me that. But
funny.
then that's when the light bulb clicked because someone saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. And so I decided I'm definitely a reader. I read everything. So that's why I can relate to you on I read everything. In the bathroom, everything. It could be a bottle in the bathroom, I'm reading it. I just enjoy it. I don't even watch television, and people don't believe that when I say that. I don't watch no TV at all. So piggybacking off of what Maria said, I definitely can agree with you. Like, where's all this coming from? And then one day I just picked it up and I just said, I couldn't stop. I could not stop. So it's quite interesting. I like that. That sounds like me. Yes, definitely. Younger version, right? I'm a younger version of you.
About
That's
organization.
nice.
Yes, organizations are very helpful. I'm a member of New Jersey Romance Writers. Even if you don't write romance, I highly recommend their conference. There are workshops that are just fabulous, given by New York Times bestselling authors. They have people come into their meetings. I feel bad. We're missing the meeting today.
We're missing the swordsman today.
2 swordsmen coming into the meeting today to talk about fencing and
History of
and
swords.
the history of swords, which would be perfect. You know,
Well,
no matter
thank
what
you.
genre you take. So I do recommend their conference. When I first started writing, another thing I can recommend is Burlington County College, which is now Rowan at Burlington County College.
Right.
I'd writing the fiction novel 1 and 2, which I did take before I published this one, my first one. So, and I'm on like my 15th now. So I do recommend that. There's Kathleen Long was taking that class, who's an Amazon bestselling author now. So they do have, it's credit free. You can sign up, and it's a good instructor just talking about the basics of fiction and how to get started and how to get published and how to get an agent, like the whole thing. So
And for me, I came from a dental hygiene background, and I was very involved in the dental hygiene organization. And to me, that was professional networking. So when I started to write, I knew I wanted to go about getting published. So my thought was, well, where's the professional organizations for writers? And that's when I started. And I joined New Jersey Romance Writers, as well as we have the national and local chapters and special interest chapters. And for me, it was not necessarily about the craft of writing, but it was about the networking and meeting editors and agents. Because I pitched my book, well, the first one was very well rejected. But when I pitched my second novel to an editor at a conference, she requested the novel, and actually it was 20 years ago this week that she called with an offer to buy it. So my first book was based on a conference pitch. So I highly recommend the networking, and whether it's romance or whether it's any other, whether it's a general writing conference, there are lots of them that do have editors and agents, and you get that chance. So I want to talk about romance now, because we control the market. Yes. Tell me what you think, and urban fiction, because again, I need to hear more about this. Tell me what you think your genre is. And to me, when I hear genre is expectation, a reader expectation. So can readers expect from your genre?
Let's see. Ooh, that's a hard.
Do you want me to you can think about it?
Yes, come back.
Okay.
Yes,
All
because
right.
it's many.
Tina, what do you
I can
think?
talk about
Okay, Tina.
romance is huge, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a romance author, but the genre of romance encompasses everything. I mean, there's science fiction romance. There's probably horror romance. I'm sure there is. There's vampires. There's Highlanders. There's Regency lords and ladies. There's attorneys in books, and there's contemporary. There's just so much. I mean, even in contemporary, there's long contemporary. There's mid contemporary. There's short contemporary. I can't even say. There's probably over 20 different little niches of romance, and that's probably why they dominate the market, because there's just so much romance out there that no matter what you write, there's usually some kind of love story in there, and it can be qualified as a romance, really, as long as it has a happy ending and it has like a couple. It could be gay, it could be lesbian, it could be whatever it is. It could be romance, and it's huge.
Yeah.
Am I putting that into words right?
Oh, no, I think that's true. It is a huge umbrella, and there are pretty much any kind of book you like to read, there is that type of romance that you can read. To me, the key is the romance is the plot. If you can take the development of the relationship between the main characters out of the story, it's not a romance. It could be a love story, it could be romantic elements, but if the romance is the plot. And then, of course, on top of that, we have the historical plot and the action plot and all sorts of other plots to put into it. But the romance is the plot.
So one of the things that I'm doing right now, the series that I'm just going to be signing a contract on, is more women's fiction. And the big question has always been, what's the difference between women's fiction and romance? And because I do write romance, and my women's fiction have huge romance pieces to them, but it's more about a relationship. Mine is a relationship among girlfriends. So it's
The
four,
woman's journey.
right. So it's four girlfriends that were best friends in high school who are now in their early 30s, and they're each going through their own traumatic experiences, love experience, loss experiences, divorce, affairs, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And they're each finding their new person. So the romance is huge in these books, but it's also the bonding of the women and how they're helping each other get through their life experiences. So that's, so when I was sending it out, one of the things that the questions coming back from either agents or editors, well, is this a romance or is it women's fiction? And it's like, well, it's both.
I know.
It's both.
And I always think that every romance is a women's fiction,
Right.
but not every women's fiction is a romance.
Correct, because women's fiction doesn't have to have a happy ending.
And doesn't have to end.
Even
Yeah.
if it's a satisfying ending.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good. Yay! Urban fiction.
I'm ready. When you think of urban fiction, a lot of times urban fiction really deals with a Black author. Basically, that's just the bottom line. A Black author, and urban fiction is not taken seriously.
Welcome
much
to
as-
romance.
As much as we would
Welcome
like.
to romance.
Because we deal with a different type of lifestyle. A lot of times it's murder, drug selling, things that we've done in our local neighborhoods, and it's like we never get out of that neighborhood. Now that the reading and writing is becoming more interesting, people are anxious to see what we're talking about. They want to hear our voice. Now we're starting to have more of a voice when it comes to urban fiction. And so when I say I'm an urban fiction author, they're like, interesting. What's the name of your book? The Black Lily. Then the title was catchy, so of course they want to gravitate to that. But being an urban fiction author, it was not easy at all. And you're really dealing with a lifestyle of how you're brought up in the urban community. What's different from other communities versus the urban community. So I tend to battle with that, if that makes sense, because I am an urban fiction author, because I talk about how I was raised, not in the book, but just if I had that conversation, how I was raised, the lifestyle we lived, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's a way of life for some, not for
So
some.
it has to be an African American author.
Yeah, when you say urban fiction, yes, absolutely. You'll instantly know. He or she is Black.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know that. And RWA right now, Romance Writers of America, is going through some issues of diversity. And so it's interesting to hear,
And it's unfortunate.
well, and publishing in general, because it's pretty clear, the majority of authors in terms of traditional publishing are white.
Okay.
And so there's a big question and big issue right now about even submitting to publishers and what they're looking for. And in terms of diversity has been brought up.
Yes.
As
And
a big
sometimes
issue.
we're frowned upon.
Welcome to romance.
And it's unfortunate
But-
because
and then we have
we're
that
just as
issue-
good. Or even better.
Yeah, writing is writing.
Writing is writing, and it depends on what type of reader you are and what's your niche. And if you pick up a book and you grab the reader, the first two, I would say first and second chapter, you're sold. You got them. That's it. They won't even think about not so much who wrote the book or what community you came from. I like that author. I love Maria. I love Terri. I love Myrtha. I don't care what they write.
Now, do you find that is that the only type of story that you gravitated to? Ladies, did you only gravitate towards writing romance, or were there other things? Tina, I especially want to hear about your mystery, but was that the only thing that you wanted to write?
No, I had murder in there. No, I love horror.
Oh.
Stephen King is like my number one guy because I love the way he thinks. I love the way he thinks, and how he think is strange and a little odd to some people. But if I had a chance to sit with him in Maine, I would probably take a month off and I would sit with him in Maine, and I would have a best-selling book by the time the 31st comes.
I was going to say, when I was conference chair of RWA for our conference, he was the top pick for me to get to come and speak.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have I have his contact information.
We definitely need to connect.
But at that time, the romance board decided no, they wanted the focus on romance, and I just thought that was the most insane thing I'd ever heard.
And it's funny
But
because
he
Stephen
has-
King has
yes.
a look, yes, bag of bones.
Well, but he has, again, relationships in every story.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, Maria, did you always want to write romance? Or
Well,
women's
once I
fiction?
decided that I was going to, yes. Later in life, yes, I just wanted to write romance, and I think it is from doing divorce all day long. I need something
Happy ever after.
happy.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, I mean, I'll read anything. I love reading all kinds of books, but I just want to write romance.
When you're writing women's fiction.
And women's fiction.
Yeah.
with a heavy romance.